Whenever you have, and Shah Waliullah Dehlvi rahimahullah was one of the first, Islamic scholars, fuqaha, with foresight to see that the modern world is at its helm. Like he was the 16th, 17th century, and he was already starting to see like the modern world shape. And he realized something economically is going to happen that's never happened in the world before, and he called it. He said, there's two things that are going to happen. You're going to have obscenely rich people, and as a result, you're going to have obscenely poor people. And the obscenely poor people are going to live their lives, their iman will be destroyed because they'll live their lives just to survive. All they'll worry about is surviving. They'll break their backs working and not save a penny and just worry about feeding themselves for that day. That's going to become the fate of most of the poor. You learn the hadith, كَادَ الْفَقْرَ أَنْ يَكُونَ كُفْرًا. Remember in the 40 hadith that the poverty can almost become what? Kufr. Why? Because when someone is that poor, you can't talk to them about concerns of Jannah and Nar. What are they worried about? Lunch. Where am I going to sleep? That's what they're worried about. They're literally down to survival. They're living like animals at that point. Their human dignity is stripped from them in that level of poverty. Right? So you can't talk to them about Iman at that point. It's at a social level. Individually something else. At a social level, Iman drops in that culture. And then the other side, you have obscenely rich people. And he said that when they become so rich, they don't know what to do with their wealth. So they engage in all kinds of corrupt and shameless activities and decadence and extravagance that creates this other culture, this culture of extreme sin. So the masses of the people start losing Iman, and the top of the people have the most corrupt practices. And the other thing that happens is both of these sides start hating each other. They look down upon the low because they're so low, they don't even see them as human anymore. And the low at the bottom say, those people, they have everything and we have nothing. Why is that? And there's this class warfare that starts happening between the classes, right? So Allah says, كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دَوْلَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ, so that there shouldn't be wealth circling among just a few. Because the people who rode their horses into the battle against Banu Nudayr were expecting twice. Obviously the people with the horses are richer than the people that don't have horses, right? So the guy didn't have to spend much because they just parked their horses and came back. They didn't fight. They didn't lose anything, and now they should get richer on top of that. Allah said, no, this should be distributed to the poor. This money should go to the poor. This, by the way, is a very important ayah because it dictated foreign policy for Muslims in the future. Umar radiallahu anhu used this ayah to stop what could have been one of the worst economic catastrophes of human history. It could have turned into one of the worst economic catastrophes of human history. When Muslims started conquering territories in Rome and Persia, then the Sahaba, some of them came back and said, well, we conquered these lands, therefore a fifth of it should go to the Muslim treasury and 80% of it should be distributed among the soldiers. That would have created the world's greatest aristocracy. Every soldier would have had acres and acres and miles of land, like 10,000 soldiers sharing an entire country. That's not enough people. That's very few people sharing a lot of land. Right? And an aristocracy, if you know, like the ownership of land, farmland especially, what does that create? You have a working class that works on the field, and you have the owner class, the aristocrat, that takes all the benefit from the field, right? And it actually perpetuates a slavery culture. It perpetuates the culture of slavery. So some Sahaba came back and they said, according to the ayah, we should get 80%, the Muslim treasury should get 20%. And Umar radiallahu anhu had the foresight to say, actually, whatever you found on the battlefield, you keep. But all the land, because the battlefield happens at the border. It happens in the battlefield. But as a result, you take over the entire country. That doesn't mean the country is going to get distributed among the soldiers. The only thing distributed among the soldiers is whatever they found on the battlefield. The rest of it is fay'. The rest of it is overspill, and that belongs to the Muslim treasury, Allah and His Messenger. When the Messenger is gone, the idea is the Muslim treasury. And the first time in human history, they developed the concept of government-owned land. Public land. And it wasn't like the government took its money. The entire point of it was all the revenues that will be generated from this farmland that's been taken over is going to be redistributed to the poor of the Muslims. It's going to get so the land is now serving the needs of the masses. That's been taken over as a result of war. SubhanAllah. It's incredible. And if you study like modern war, not the video game, Modern Warfare, but if you study modern war, then you'll find that once a nation is taken over in the modern world, corporations come in and buy a bunch of land. Right? They come in, the oil companies come in, and whatever mining companies come in, or whatever, water companies come in and start rechanneling rivers and things like that. And what happens to all of that wealth? It starts going into further enriching the rich after war is over. These wars happened, and the idea of it was to make wealth circulate among the people. And Islam has that embedded in its code. Like if you're a rich family, there's no guarantee that you'll be rich generations from now, because every time a person dies, they have to leave behind an inheritance. And the inheritance has a share for the man, the woman, the brother, the sister, etc., the wife, etc. Everybody, basically, it was one patch of wealth, but it didn't stay in that family, it got spread. And then the girls marry off in another family. So they take that wealth with them. It doesn't stay in the same last name anymore. Right? So it was this system, even the system of zakat is one that ensures that you don't have aristocratic families that have been billionaires for centuries. It doesn't let you do that. It just, you can be well off, but you're not going to be like, eating off the ground or whatever, but it's going to make sure that you don't become so obscenely rich at the expense of the rest of society. And you'll find, this is very interesting, you'll find in economies in the world that have the most poverty also have the richest people. You'll find that. The richest people, the most insanely rich people, you'll find in the most struggling economies. There's a handful of people controlling the entire wealth. And everybody else can starve to death, who cares? Okay? So, لَكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. Whatever the messenger is given you better take it. Meaning this policy. Because when Sahaba went into battle, there's an expectation. There are human beings after all, there's an expectation. There's going to be spoils of war. And of course, they know that the fort has a lot of goods in it. They have udda, they have withaq, they have protections, they have armor, they have artillery. They're well equipped. None of it came to them. وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُ. Then whatever he forbade you from, you better stop. Whatever the messenger stopped you from going at, you don't go for it. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And be cautious of Allah. No doubt Allah is intense in taking vengeance. لِلْفُقَرَاءِ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ. Allah then said, and by the way, there is a special segment of people that among even the soldiers will get some of these spoils of war, and those are the very poor, the muhajirin that have come from Makkah. Now who should start feeling bad? I'm sorry, what? Why came for us? Muhajirin are going to get it? الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ. Those who were expelled from their homes, وَأَمْوَالِهِمْ, and their wealth, they have lost all of their wealth. يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانًا. Those in pursuit of a favor from Allah and His contentment only. وَيَنْصُرُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. And they aid Allah and His Messenger. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. Those are the actually truthful ones. Allah gave a justification in this ayah, not just because they're poor, not just because they're muhajirun, because they've already given Allah way more than anybody else has. What have they given Allah? Their homes, all of their assets. They've left everything for Allah. So Allah is going to give them. They didn't ask the messenger, Allah gave them. Allah gave them. But now who might still feel a little like, what about us? Ansar. So the next ayah is a compliment to the Ansar. This is Allah telling the Ansar, this is what makes you guys awesome. Now I gave you an ayah what makes the Muhajirun awesome. Let me give you an ayah what makes the Ansar awesome, so you feel like I've addressed you too. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ. Those who are well settled in the home, meaning those who were well settled in Medina. وَالْإِيمَانِ وَأَخْلَصُوا الْإِيمَانِ يعني, and they had well settled iman min qablihim. From before the Muhajirin came here, who was already there in Medina? The people of the Ansar, and they had already developed iman before the Prophet even came, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Through Mus'ab ibn Umair, through the ambassador of Islam, so many of them had already accepted Islam. So this is their compliment. يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. And look at their wonderful quality. They love those who made hijrah towards them. They don't have hate for them, they have love for them. They love immigrants. Which country can say that today? They love immigrants. When somebody migrates towards them, what do most people say? They're going to eat away the economy. They're going to take away our jobs. They're going to take away our homes. They're going to corrupt our schools. They're going to corrupt our language. They're going to take away our culture. We don't want them here. Go back to your country. Isn't that what happens in many countries where there's a influx of immigration? There's anti-immigrant attitudes, But the Sahaba are coming and they're all bankrupt, which means they all need to be financially supported. They're all on welfare. All of the Muhajirun are on welfare. And it's not like Medina is this affluent economy. These guys are barely making it themselves. And they're completely funding the muhajirun. You don't think the sentiment is going to be there? These guys are living off of our scraps and they're taken away from the 2 meals we had to eat barely, and now we have to share it with them, etc., etc. Allah says they love those who migrated towards them. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. And they don't feel anything in their hearts, in their chest. There's not a single place where they feel discomfort because of what they were given, meaning because of what the muhajirun were just given. The muhajirun were just given extra spoils of war that the Ansar were not given. They don't feel anything in their hearts. First of all, they live off of us and they get extra bonus on top of that. By the way, who feels that way? Munafiqun felt that way. And a surah is coming where basically they're going to say it. They're just going to say it. These people, how do they get? And how can you imagine how angry the Munafiqun would have been when the policy was revealed? Subhanallah. Because see, Munafiqun hate battle. They absolutely hate battle. So even if they did show up, now there wasn't a battle, so they're really happy. They're like, no battle and free stuff. And the policy came, you'll get nothing. This is not anfal, this is fay'. Fay' you get nothing from, because you didn't sacrifice anything. You showed up, thanks for coming, but you didn't have to fight. Allah is the one who won this battle without a single sword being lifted. So you get, and so they're upset. Then what's even more upsetting, who gets something? Muhajirun get a special prize from Allah. Like, they were mad. They were angry. Now Allah describes the real Ansar and says, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And they give preference to others over themselves. They sacrifice themselves for the sake of others. يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Urdu speakers have taken the word isar, qurbani or isar. Isar is actually ithar with a tha. And it means to give preference. To give preference. And to consider somebody else before you consider yourself. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And Allah says, وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Even if they were afflicted themselves with khasasa. Khasasa, the word khassun in Arabic is muflis, muhtaj. Bankrupt person. So poor he doesn't have enough to eat. That guy has khasasa. به خصاصة يعني ليس له أكل ليس له طعام ولا شراب. He's homeless. He's got no food. He's nothing. He says these Ansar are so incredibly generous, they give others preference over themselves even if they themselves don't have food to eat. Even if they have khasasa. And then he adds, this is the compliment Allah gives the Ansar, but if this compliment is not enough for you, if you're still kind of like feeling the greed a little, Allah says, وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. And whoever got protected from the internal greed, the miserliness, the desire for more wealth, the stinginess. Whoever got protected from the stinginess that is encoded into his person, encoded into his personality. Shuhhun nafs, shuhha nafsihi. They'll come up against Surah At-Taghabun, this phrase, وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. Right? What does it mean? It means that all of us, inherently inside of us, have some level of greed. It's part of our being. It's there. Allah put that in us. I am greedy. I mean, when I go home with a really juicy Kit Kat and kids show up, I eat the first bar, then I distribute it among them. Because, I gotta have my piece. At least. There's a greed inside of us. It can manifest in children, it can manifest in adults. It's human nature. And by the way, some level of greed is necessary for survival. You have to be greedy to survive, to some extent. But Allah says, at a level of, when you develop this brotherhood, when you're part of a community, then you have to put that greed in check. And whoever can be protected. See, waqiya, yaqi, the passive form of it is yuqa, and this is actually majzoom. It's actually lightest form, yuqa. Yuqa becomes yuqa. Whoever might get protected, whoever would get protected from the greed that is inside of himself, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Then those people are the ones that have truly attained success. Those people have gotten somewhere because they've been able to fight that animal inside. وَالَّذِينَ جَاءُوا مِن بَعْدِهِمْ. And those who came much after them, يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا بِالْإِيمَانِ. And they say, "Oh our Master, forgive us and forgive our brothers, those who preceded us in faith, those who came in faith before us. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And don't allow for any ill feeling to enter into our hearts against those who believe. Ghil. Ghil is bad feelings. Ghil is also, a kind of jealousy. That why do they have? Why don't I have? That's ghil also. Worldly aspirations. The Quran says, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَبِيٍّ أَنْ يَغُلَّ. It's not becoming of a prophet to have worldly aspirations and to vie for what other people have. Don't make us like that. Don't make us jealous of other believers. Don't make us think, why did they get? Why didn't I get? رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Our Master, no doubt, you are the one extremely compassionate. You're the one always merciful. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ نَافَقُوا. Didn't you look towards those engaged in hypocrisy? يَقُولُونَ لِإِخْوَانِهِمْ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Who say to their brothers who've disbelieved from the people of the book, the treacherous tribes of the Jews that were violating treaties made with the Muslims, were having secret council meetings with the munafiqun. Allah says, didn't you see how pathetic these people are? لَإِنْ أُخْرِجْتُمْ لَنُخْرَجَنَّ مَعَكُمْ. They said to them, if you get kicked out, لَإِنْ أُخْرِجْتُمْ, passive form, أُخْرِ, U-E sound. لَإِنْ أُخْرِجْتُمْ, this is أخرج يخرج إخراج, right? أُخْرِجَ. Ukhrija becomes ukhrijtum. If people get kicked out, لَنَخْرُجَنَّ مَعَكُمْ, then we will come out with you. We're with you guys. We've been with you before he got here, before Islam got here. Yeah, we're Muslim, but we're never going to follow a policy that makes us fight against you. And if they ever kick you out, we're going to be with you guys, okay? You got it. You got it. We're with you. We're brothers in this. وَلَا نُطِيعُ فِيكُمْ أَحَدًا أَبَدًا. And we're never going to follow anybody in your case. If we are given an instruction to fight with you guys, we will. I don't care who gives us that policy. I don't care if it comes from Muhammad. They don't say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We do. We're never going to follow that. You guys are our buddies. وَإِن قُتِلْتُمْ. And if you are fought, لَنَنْصُرَنَّكُمْ. We will absolutely aid you. We have picked our sides. We're on your side. Wallahu yashhadu innahum lakadibun. Allah testifies actually they're making these lies. Just like they try to impress the Muslims, they're trying to impress Banu Nudayr, Banu Qurayza. They're trying to impress them. They're trying to make sure they're covered on all sides. One of the things the munafiq loves is being safe. And one of the things the munafiq hates is the battlefield. So whether the battlefield is alongside the Muslims or against them, he's not going to go. He's not going to go. He's just empty talk. He's buttering them up just like he tries to butter you guys up. لَإِنْ أُخْرِجُوا. And if they were expelled, لَا يَخْرُجُونَ مَعَهُمْ. They're not coming out with them. Allah calls it out. وَلَإِنْ قُوتِلُوا. And if they were to be fought, لَا يَنْصُرُونَهُم. They're not going to help them. وَلَإِنْ نَصَرُوهُم. And if they did even help them, even if they did show up like, oh yeah, I'll come help you. لَيُوَلُّنَّ الْأَدْبَارِ. Absolutely no doubt about it, they will turn their backs and run for it. And then, ثُمَّ لَا يُنصَرُونَ. Then they won't be helped. لَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ رَهْبَةً فِي صُدُورِهِمْ. You are more intense. You are scarier to them in the depths of their hearts than Allah is, min Allah. They don't fear Allah, but they're afraid you might find out that they're really hypocrites. They're more afraid of the social consequences of them being exposed than they are of Allah Himself. Their reputations are more dear to them than their fear of Allah. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. And that's all because they're a nation that just doesn't understand. لَا يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ جَمِيعًا. They're not going to fight you all together. They're not going to come out in front and meet you in the battlefield. Now it's talking about Banu Nudayr also. إِلَّا فِي قُرًى مُحَصَّنَةٍ. Except if they do fight you, they're going to be in towns that are well fortified. أَوْ مِنْ وَرَاءِ جُدُرٍ. Or from behind walls, like strategic locations where they don't have to meet you face to face. Traditional battle, when you face the enemy in classical times, was two armies gather up and they clash face to face. But they would never do that. If they did fight you, it'll be from behind a wall, behind a fort. They'll find some kind of other strategic location to fight you from. بَأْسُهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شَدِيد. Let me tell you something, inside information about the Jewish community of Medina. Allah says, their wars and their conflicts among themselves are intense. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. You think they're all united. You think they're all on one page. وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. And their hearts are all over the place. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. That is because they're a nation that refuses to apply their intellect. If they really thought about what's the best advantageous thing for them, it was Islam itself, but they can't consider that option. كَمَثَلِ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ قَرِيبًا. They're just like those who were not too long before, way before them, just before them recently, meaning the people of Badr, in the battle of Badr, what the Meccans suffered. ذَاقُوا وَبَالَ أَمْرِهِمْ. They've already tasted the consequences of their decisions. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And they have painful punishment, particularly. كَمَثَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. This is all just like the work of shaitan, the example of shaitan.